So here we go. It's day 4 of learning to draw from zero. Today I'm gonna do ellipses. Right, so let me verify the stream actually works. Open the chat. Okay, I think it's good. So I guess let's start with video.
So by this point, we've introduced lines, the overarching principles of mark making, and the all-important ghosting method. And you've gone through the assigned homework exercises for the line section as well. So let's take a look at what we've learned and apply it to something new, ellipses. All the shapes you see on this page are ellipses. Some of you may think, oh, I know those are ovals. But the argument that I want to make today is that they are all, in fact, circles. A circle is a shape where any point along its perimeter is the same distance from its center as any other. It's going to be the same height as its width, so any rectangle we draw enclosing it on all sides would itself be a square. Pretty obviously, most of the shapes on this page don't fit that criteria.
Yep.
But what if we took a circle in 3D space, like this disk, instead of the 2D space of this page? Unlike the drawings on the page, it can be moved around in all 3 dimensions of space, and it can even be rotated on all 3 axes. Everything we learn in this course is about taking things that exist in 3 dimensions and learning how to draw them on a flat surface, such that they still look to the viewer as though they're 3D. In order to do this, we have to learn what happens on the 2-dimensional page when a 3D form is moved around and turned about. What we see here is a circle, but if we focus on what we would actually draw to represent this circle from observation as it's rotated in space, you'll notice that it actually gets squeezed in 1 dimension and takes on an elliptical shape as it's rotated. An ellipse is just a circular shape that has been squeezed down by anything from nothing, so a circle itself is still an ellipse, to being squeezed down into a straight line.
Wait, is it real? It's ellipse, not ellipse. What the fuck?
We call the width of an ellipse its degree.
Anyway.
If you're familiar with geometry, we use degrees to express rotation. And this is no different, because the width of an ellipse changes based on its rotation relative to the viewer. An ellipse with a degree of 0 is just a line, because we're viewing the circle from the side. An ellipse with a degree of 90 has rotated a full 90 degrees to face us head on. Note that as the disk is moved around in space without rotating it, the degree of the ellipse gets wider, allowing us to see more of its face, because the angle in question is the one between the viewer's angle of sight and the orientation of the circle in space. As the circle moves around in the world, this angle changes, even if the circle itself is not rotated. So you can see here that when you're looking down the edge of this circle, there's nothing to be seen on either side of it, but as you move it to the side, you can start to see a little bit of its face, so that degree of the ellipse is actually getting wider. This is important to consider because if we were to depict a tube running straight across our field of view, we wouldn't be drawing the ellipses with all the same degree. That degree would change as we sample different cross-sections along the length of the form. So as you can see here, in this incorrect example, you've got the same degree on every ellipse that we look at along the length of this cylinder, and they're all the same, and that's incorrect. Instead, they would open up as they get further to either side of the viewer, because the actual angle between the viewer is opening up between the viewer and the circle itself. The last thing I want to introduce you to is a piece of the anatomy of an ellipse. It's called the minor axis. The minor axis is the line that cuts across the ellipse's narrowest point. So if we were to look at the different spans across which you could measure this ellipse, if we were still to pass through the center, then the narrowest point would be maybe about here. My pen is dying on me. So the minor axis is the line that cuts across that narrowest point, cutting it into 2 equal symmetrical halves. So the idea is that if I were to take this and fold it over, it would line up perfectly, and you just end up with this. Ellipses also have a major axis that runs across the widest point, but ironically, it's the minor axis which is the most useful to us. Just as an ellipse represents a circle in 3D space, the minor axis also bears an important relationship to something in 3 dimensions. If I were to take a toothpick and pass it through the center of my disk, you'll find that the toothpick is sitting about perpendicularly to the face of the disk itself. In physics, this is called a normal vector, but for those of you unfamiliar with that term, you can just think of it as the line in 3D space that is pointing straight out from the circle's surface, not slanting one way or another. The minor axis of our two-dimensional ellipse that we drew on our flat page represents the normal vector in 3D space, just as the 2D ellipse represents the 3D circle. So if I were to put down another ellipse, that was poorly done. If you were to picture this ellipse as being in 3D space, being an actual circle, then this line here would be the one coming off its surface, just as this toothpick does.
Mm-hmm.
This may seem kind of arbitrary right now, but it's actually extremely useful because it allows us to align our ellipses relative to something that exists in the 3D world. If we know what direction the normal vector should be pointing, then we can draw it on the page and use it as the actual minor axis of our ellipse. So for example, if I draw that line first...
So they're the same, right?
Then I can draw an ellipse that tries to align to this line.
Didn't think about it.
With a minor axis on the page, it is just a matter of drawing the ellipse so that it is cut into two equal symmetrical halves down its narrowest dimension by this line. And that's precisely what I did with the cylinder. You can see that I've got this straight line going straight down the middle. I've aligned all of these ellipses to it so that I can know that they're all going to be parallel to one another in the world. Because if you were to have a cylinder, I have another poorly cut out disc. If you've got a cylinder, which is basically just two circles connected by a tube, you want to make sure those circles are parallel to one another and not, awkwardly angled, because then they'd look skewed. So you want to make sure that they are parallel.
Yep.
It's like this toothpick in the minor axis forms the actual spine of the cylinder.
Okay.
And if the form as a whole rotates with that minor axis and that normal vector, then both ellipses will turn accordingly. Now, I fully expect that what I just explained is going to cause more than a few headaches, because this is the first point in the course where you're breaking down the barrier between two-dimensional space and three-dimensional space. I don't expect you to understand this immediately, but by laying down the theory behind these concepts, we're starting to plant seeds in your brain.
No, it all makes sense. I just don't know.
Once you've read through the written content for this section, is to water those seeds by working through the assigned homework exercises.
Okay.
Speaking of which, when you do those exercises and draw your own ellipses, there's two things I want you to remember to do. The first is to simply draw your ellipses from your shoulder. You can't see my whole shoulder right now, but I've got a whole video about it, how you can use your whole arm to draw, but I want you to make sure that you're not drawing them from your wrist, because these ellipses require the kind of smooth, fluid, even shapes that we can get from using our whole arm, not the kind of stiff precision that we can get from using our wrist. So if you were to draw it using your wrist, you'd have a very limited range of motion, and your ellipse will probably come out pretty uneven. If you draw it with your shoulder, you can draw bigger ellipses, smaller ellipses, it doesn't matter. It will come out more smoothly. Even the small ones can be drawn from your shoulder. The other point is that I want you to use the ghosting method for these ellipses, and frankly, for every mark where you're better off using your whole arm, use the ghosting method too. It'll help you to get into the habit of thinking before you draw and weighing how each and every mark contributes to a given drawing, so you don't have to put marks down wastefully. Of course, it'll also help you increase your overall control while allowing you to execute your marks confidently. To that point, remember that executing your marks confidently doesn't mean as fast as you can. It just means that you're drawing with a sense that you're always pushing yourself forward, not hesitating or trying to steer things with your eyes. As you can see here, I'm applying the ghosting method, but my execution isn't going nearly as fast as I could go. I'm just keeping an even pace. I'm always moving forwards. And there you go. It's still pretty smooth. It gets a tiny bit hesitant, so you will have to weigh, am I slowing down so much that I can't be confident at this pace? You will have points where you will inevitably start to wobble, and so as soon as you catch that, speed up a little bit more, but keep focusing on the fact that it's not just about speed, it's about being confident. So I can ostensibly draw a line that just continually moves forwards without
Wow,
very much
that's a
wobbling,
fucking
even though
straight
it's at a slow
line. What
pace.
the fuck?
Or
How he
that
does it?
line that just
So
not just
slowly,
about
look at
speed,
that.
it's about being confident. So I can ostensibly draw a line that just continually moves forwards
He just got...
without very much wobbling,
Ow.
even though it's at a slow pace. Of course, had I sped that up a little bit, because that was a little below my threshold, it would have been smoother. So that about wraps it up for ellipses. Again, make sure that you read through the text as well. It goes
Oh,
over the
seriously.
same concepts I've explained here, but going through them in different forms and formats will help you wrap your head around them more easily. And of course, going back over videos, going back over the notes and whatever, even if you've watched and read them already, is always a good thing.
Feels so awkward reading on stream, honestly. Okay, that's why ellipses are important, right? Circles in 3D space. I guess it kinda makes sense, right? Like, it's not difficult. The fact that, how's it called? The normal vector aligns with a minor axis is pretty interesting, right? And it does make sense. Like, it happens all the time. Right, because it always points toward me if I look right at the circle. When I start to rotate it, it shifts. It starts overlapping the shortest distance, right? The shortest diameter. How can I call it in ellipse? Okay, degree shift, minor axis, normal vector, cylinders. Exercise: to fill pages of tables of ellipses. Wait, is it tables? Am I misreading it? Yeah, it's tables. Okay, it's interesting. There are a few more videos.
The tables of ellipses exercise is one that is going to help you get used to drawing ellipses. That is, doing so confidently to maintain a smooth, even shape, drawing them with different degrees, and developing overall accuracy and control. To start, we want to build a table. Grab a ruler, or any kind of reliable straight edge, and draw a border around the page as I'm doing here. Often students look to these first steps as busy work, and some of them have tried creating printable templates that they can whip off quickly, allowing them to jump straight into the ellipses themselves. Personally, I think there's some value in going through the setup process each time, and by using these templates, you miss the opportunity to calm your brain down and put yourself in the proper headspace for executing this exercise to the best of your ability. By having to take your time and position the ruler for each and every stroke, you're putting yourself in a slightly meditative state and pushing away every other concern. It really is a simple task. Take a ruler, draw a line. We know that if we rush this step, it'll come out sloppy, but if we take our time, the ruler guarantees everything will come out cleanly. It's that mindset and principle that will serve us well through the rest of this exercise and the course as a whole. Take your time, be patient, and be mindful of every action you take. Once the border is drawn, draw some lines across the width of the page, that is, the narrower span. You don't need to space these out evenly. In fact, try and put more space between some and less space between others. Variation will be useful for what we do later. Lastly,
Wait, he says variations?
once the border is drawn, draw
So
some
there
lines
must be
across
equal.
the width of the page, that is, the narrower span. You don't need to space these out evenly. In
Okay.
fact, try and put more space between some and less space between others. Variation will be useful for what we do later.
But they look pretty even for him. I don't know.
Lastly, draw a single line down the center along the length of the page, splitting the table in two. The exercise itself is pretty straightforward. In each rectangular space of the table, draw the same kind of ellipse, starting from one side and working towards the other. As we draw these ellipses, we will have certain boundaries to work with, like the top and bottom edges, and sometimes the left or right edge, or the ellipse we drew previously. Try to keep your ellipse as tight and as snug against those boundaries as possible, aiming not to overshoot or undershoot and have them just touching. This is a lot harder than it seems, so you will make mistakes, as
really
you can
hard.
see me doing here. It's fine to make mistakes, but what matters is that you should be focusing on this as your goal and intent, rather than drawing ellipses randomly in the given space. Also, as you can see, I am drawing around each elliptical shape 2 full times before I lift my pen. This is something I want you to do for every single ellipse you draw throughout this course, and I'll explain why in a bit. And of course, make sure you're executing each and every ellipse, even the smaller ones, from your shoulder while using the ghosting method to help you maintain a confident stroke free from hesitation. This exercise. As you get comfortable with this exercise, there's another variation you can try. Here I'm drawing a simple wavy line through the middle of one of the rectangular spaces. It breaks the space into uneven sections. Just like before, try to draw ellipses within these spaces. You still have boundaries to work with, but they're no longer straight and clean. In this variant, you don't necessarily have to draw the same kind of ellipse each time, just focus on keeping them snug and tight against one another. You can also do this with a straight diagonal line instead of a wavy one. Exercise. As a whole, the focus of this exercise is to give yourself lots of different kinds of spaces in which to practice drawing your ellipses confidently and accurately. Once you're finished with the last rectangular space, you can find the little remaining gaps and holes and fill them in with a few more ellipses before calling the page done. Here's what it should look like when you're done. In the next video, we're going to take a look at some of the things that you should definitely keep in mind while doing this exercise.
Okay, so I still can proceed to doing it. Because my browser died again. Oh no, it works. Okay. Tables of ellipses. The purpose of this exercise is meant to get you used to drawing ellipses. A variety of sizes, orientations, and degrees. Okay. Because against set criteria with a way of just success failure is an important element of learning. There is nothing wrong with failure, it's an opportunity to learn. Having a clearly defined task allows to analyze those failures and make the most of them. Yep. Seems to remember, let's do it.
As you work through this exercise, there are 2 main things that I want you to keep in mind. First of all, confidence. Comes back to the basic principles of mark making. I want you to make sure that you are prioritizing the confidence of your execution first and foremost over anything else. That means using the ghosting method, drawing from your shoulder, and making sure that you are always using your arm to get the best flow possible. One thing I want you to do that will help you achieve that is to always draw through your ellipse. That means drawing around the elliptical shape 2 full times before lifting your pen.
Okay.
Just like that. This will both give your arm more opportunities to go through that elliptical motion to get better training in terms of the muscle memory development, and it will also help you execute better ellipses on the spot, because where the first pass of the ellipse will kind of inform you more in a more tactile manner of the specific, the textural quality of the paper and how your pen is gliding, and the second pass will correct any little mistakes that you may have made along the way. But While this does itself make it easier to execute those ellipses less hesitantly, to be more confident, you still have to be conscious about executing those marks with confidence, using the ghosting method, drawing from your shoulder, and so on. Otherwise, you can still end up drawing hesitantly, even as you go around multiple times, and you'll end up with a wobbly, uneven shape. So always go confidently 2 times around the ellipse. And this is something I want you to do for every single ellipse you draw in this course. I'm not concerned with how you draw outside of the course, but from here to the end of lesson 7, every ellipse you freehand will be drawn in this manner. Next, let's look at accuracy, because once you've got that confidence under control and you are executing every mark smoothly and focusing on flow, then without losing that confidence, we start thinking about accuracy. And in this exercise, we have certain limitations to where we want to place our ellipses. We always focus on what is the goal? What is my intent? We're not just drawing a bunch of random ellipses, hoping for the best. We have to first start with the preparation phase of the ghosting method, which means knowing where we want our mark to go. Here we've got a top edge and a bottom edge, and we want to make sure that the ellipse fits in that space. You may not pull this off perfectly, you probably will mess it up plenty of times, but the first step is to know exactly what it is that you're trying to achieve. So we use our ghosting method, we know that we want to fit between these spaces, and then we execute. So here there's a little bit of a gap. I didn't do it perfectly. But what's important is that I know I missed the mark because I was intending to do something differently from what came out. Had I just been drawing random ellipses, there's no way of knowing what I was actually intending to achieve. But because we have
there's a benchmark,
identified specifically
you can see
where I want my ellipse to fall,
what you're doing is correct.
We can see I made a mistake here. I underestimated how far that ellipse had to go, and I was able to learn from that process. Now, as you continue drawing your ellipses, I'm going to want to keep each ellipse so that they're touching, not overlapping, not some random distance from one another, but touching gently. So again, I repeated the same mistake. I got them pretty close. There's a little bit of a gap here. Let's see, maybe rotating the page will make it a little bit easier for me to engage my whole arm and execute that mark more as I intend to. Here, I'm touching it better here, but I ended up with a gap up here and an overlap in this section. But again, these give me concrete things that I can identify and improve upon. So this is what I want you to focus on. Confidence first. Always make sure that you're executing from the arm using the ghosting method and drawing through those ellipses 2 full times, no more than that and no less. So you don't want to end up with a big hairy ellipse where you don't even know what you were aiming for. You want it to be twice. And as you practice, your execution of those ellipses will get tighter and it will be more intentional. But for now, just keep that in mind. Always be aware of what you're aiming to achieve and work towards it. This exercise is going to be present in your warm-ups for quite a while to come, so don't get caught up in everything being perfect. The point is not to grind. The point is to make sure that students, in the completion of these exercises, understand what they should be aiming for. That's all.
Sounds good. Let's do it. Okay, so I have to make a table, right? Well, I guess I'll have to skip the meditation, right? Because I can do it just like this way. Can I actually do it? Wait. Huh? What? I don't quite get it. Oh, it's because... Wait. Something's wrong. It's a group, not a layer, right? Is it? Yeah, it looks like that, right? Let's delete the group. Okay, delete the layer too. Let's then move the layer out of it. Can I? Okay. Nice. Let's create the new layer. Good. I can do it line by line. I guess I can try. Why it? Why it has this greenish highlight? Why is it there? Does it show the shift? It's kind of weird. By the way, I need some music. Good. Huh? Oh, they scale up. Doesn't work, wait. It's broken. Okay, fix it. Can I snap it? It's vertical. Oh, I can do it. Nice. Okay, so I do it with my whole arm, right? Fuck, it's much difficult. It's much more difficult than it seems actually. I mean, it already looked difficult, but it turns out to be even more difficult. Fuck, it's just so bad, mate. Okay, let's stick to it. Let us do more. Oh, this one is so bad. I got it right here though, right? It overlaps only a little bit. Here is good, but the ellipse itself, it's not kind of round. What the fuck? Why have I stopped here? I stopped here and then the trajectory changed. It was so weird. This is the next one. I guess I have to go slower, right? No, I guess I guess not. Maybe trace slower and draw faster? I'm not sure. It's so bad. I can't. Like in the middle of the process, it becomes so painful to watch. I just can't continue, right? I just. Okay. Give us some circles, right? He also rotates the paper. This was a big one, right? Like it's so inconsistent. Every trace attempt is just different. Like it's so off. Wow. Okay. I guess I'll just ignore all these caveats and we'll just do more ellipses. Let's try the smaller ones. Yeah, my camera dead. Okay, nice. I can proceed. Let's do circle. I'm also curious, how does he keep the pen, right? How vertical it is. I really think I have this idea.
The ellipses themselves.
It's actually pretty vertical, right? Perhaps like 10-15 degrees off. Okay. Circle, right? Let's scale it up. I mean, it looks like circle, right? Here, I would say pretty okay. Here's the overlap is too big. This, what's it called? Touch point? I would call it touch point. Looks pretty good. But here it could be a little bit closer. There's the small circles. I think it doesn't look that bad because I scale it up, right? And the overshooting just becomes smaller. I'm not sure how to explain it. I just feel it, right? Because in real paper, I can just scale it up. I don't feel it. I just don't feel it. Like maybe on circle, it felt relatively natural, I guess. And here, I'm just doing some really weird wavy moves when tracing it. And I just don't feel how to move my arm to make it ellipse. I guess not bad, right? It's better than it was. Overlaps. And doesn't quite match. What the fuck is this arrow? Wait. Do I fit another tiny ellipse here? Just like this one. There clearly was a point after which I realized that I started drawing. I start panicking. I realized that everything goes to shit. And everything started going to shit, right? You just so... It feels so weird. Like almost like I decided to make it better. Oh, this is a difficult one. I feel like I'll do it this way. I don't even quite see how do I fit it, right? Because this ellipse, it goes too much into the center. I can't get these two lights touching the ellipse, right? At the same time. It just doesn't fit. No, I want to redo it. Okay, not bad. Or this becomes too hard. In a really odd way. Okay, maybe not that odd, but it's unpleasant. Maybe let's proceed. Maybe I have to keep it stiffer. I feel like the main reason it hurts is because I try to keep the pen really vertical and it's just uncomfortable for me. Let's try to do it. I don't think it's a huge deal, right? And again, the defects are not that visible because I scaled up. Let's try not to scale it up. I should actually practice straight lines too. Good. I also really struggle to do small ellipses, right? They're almost always 3 ellipses. Like here, this one is really tiny. Here, the same way as here. It's always 3 ellipses. I just struggle to do those narrow ones. Feels awkward. Actually, it looks quite good, right? So there's something about this notation, right? About pointing out the mistakes that adds some weird satisfying details. It's process design. What the fuck? No. Okay, let's actually try the narrow ellipses. Let's do it like that. Let's make it touch 3 lines at the same time. No, narrow ellipses are so hard. They just stop looking like ellipses. The proportions become so off even when I trace them. Like, what the fuck is that? Why is it all here? Same mistake here. Why so sharp? What is this? It's actually tiring. I didn't expect. Like, I feel muscles in my arm. It feels weird. Like in my whole arm. I guess that's a good sign, right? I feel like I'll do only a single paper for today. It doesn't show it. I have to do it like that. I feel like it makes more sense. Actually, Let's do circles again. I want circles. Let's scale out a little bit. There's gonna be only a single circle. What the fuck? Right? Because the ratio of the rectangle is less than 2:1. I can't fit more than one circle, like real circle. Not an ellipse. What's the small circles here? I think I need more of this. It was cool. Oh, he was also doing diagonals and waves, right? Let's try it. I'm not sure that I'll handle it. I can try. So I like how smooth this wave is. And how it stops exactly where it should be. Anyway. Okay, it's not that visible because I scaled it up. Let's not scale it up. Oh, this is just straight up terrible. No, not scaling up. Actually, not that bad. Actually, I feel like I can use overlap notation here, right? But I guess it's too late. It's gonna be inconsistent. Let's scale it up again. Wait. It's a good ellipse, by the way. It's pretty good. Both strokes overlap pretty good. It overlaps with another ellipse though. No, shooting is not that bad. That is the final ellipse here. It's not rounded, right? It gets here. Not quite sure where though, right? It just looks off and I can't tell exactly it looks off. It was only a single stroke. I guess we'll leave it as this. Not bad. Where's the wave? Oh, here it is. This is a straight line. It's actually not bad. Like I would probably do much worse previously. Right? A few days ago. Is it really is that much of a progress in just 3 days? Interesting, interesting. And also considering I didn't have practice of straight lines before, right? I was doing on ellipses. It's so weird, right? Almost like the skill consolidated while I was not doing it. It's cool if it works this way. Let's do ellipses though. I scale it up. There's no point in it, right? If I scale it up, it means I'll always draw ellipses of the same size. Right? I scale it up just to the size that I'm comfortable with, and that means I don't practice different sizes. I scale it up again. I scaled up again. If it was a bad idea to use digital drawing as during the learning, because that's how it is for now. What am I doing? Not terrible. I feel like here it could be a little bit more rounded. But anyway, there's a little bit of small circles. Yeah, it sucks. Like when I put the pen on the tablet, something happens and everything goes to shit. Like I just physically felt it. I feel like I stopped. Like I was tracing, I put the pen, I stopped, I started thinking, then I continued to draw, and that's where problem emerged. I did it again, but this time I was lucky enough. No. Okay, a bit better. I guess that's it for today. It looks pretty good. Pretty cool. Alright, there is some interesting aesthetic to it. Yeah, his circles look a lot less noisy. But anyway, that's it for today.